Good morning, and thanks for watching us here for Live Impact News. I'm Eugene Daniel, and you are watching 13 News Now Plus. And on a very, very jam-packed morning in which we expect here today as House leaders return to Washington, D.C., and they are already hitting the ground running. For Republicans, we expect just moments to hear from President Trump speaking to the Republican colleagues out of the House, delivering remarks just days after Venezuelan leader Maduro was captured out of his country and brought here to the United States. And from the Democrats in the House, they are expected to hold a hearing here momentarily 5 years to the day after the attacks on the Capitol on January 6, 2021. Of course, we're going to get into all of that as it starts and so much more here for Live Impact News. But first, I want to go ahead and introduce our producer, Sarah Calloway, who is here in the studio, and meteorologist Craig Moeller. Craig, I know while we're waiting for these things to start, let's talk about this forecast, man. It's actually shaping up to be pretty nice.
Oh, so nice, Eugene. Yesterday we had a high of 54 degrees, and that was after we had 4 cooler days that were below average. So yesterday we finally got back up above average, and as we go forward, we've got some more warm weather to look forward to. Take a look at the temperature change over the last 24 hours. Temperatures are up a good 10 to 15 degrees warmer than this time yesterday. We are sitting right now at 56 degrees, so we've already topped out above where we were yesterday. And here it is just, 10 o'clock in the morning. So really just a beautiful day shaping up. We do have some more cloud cover. That's the Thompson Creek Window Company sky view. And at the airport, we're sitting 56 with southwest winds at 10 miles per hour. Now, as we go over the next 9 hours, temperatures will warm into the low 60s, maybe low to mid 60s for some inland areas. Look for variably cloudy skies. I expect the temperatures over the coming few days to be above average. We'll be back to 56 after a warm up tomorrow to near 63, 64 degrees. We'll be back to 56 on Thursday, cooler but still above average. And then Friday and Saturday, we're flirting with 70 degrees. So some warmer weather to look forward to there. We're also going to see increasing chances for showers late Friday into Saturday. It will be cooler Sunday and then below average on Monday as we get some high pressure building back in. That's going to be colder air that funnels back into the region. Right now, clouds are increasing out to the west, and I'll just let you know we will remain dry today around Hampton Roads. As you can see with our futurecast here, temperatures climbing up this afternoon into the low 60s. We do have that warm up coming. No significant fronts or anything for the next day or two, but we will get one late tomorrow, cooling us down a little bit as we get into our Thursday. All right, so highs today in Virginia Beach around the ocean front, closer to 60. I think low 60s for Norfolk, low to mid 60s, Chesapeake and Franklin. Should be around 61, maybe 62 for Portsmouth. 59 in Newport News, 60 in Hampton, and also 60 around Williamsburg. Cooler on the eastern shore, low to mid 50s there, and then mid to upper 50s for the middle peninsula from Matthews up to Gloucester. Temperatures at the Outer Banks around 60. We'll see low 60s for Edenton, Hertford at 64, and 60 for Elizabeth City. Overnight tonight, lows down around 51, mostly cloudy. So our overnight low into early tomorrow, that's the normal high. You know tomorrow's going to be warmer, 63, maybe 64 degrees. Enjoy tomorrow with more sunshine. Thursday at 56, and then that warm-up Friday into Saturday. Chances for some scattered wet weather Saturday, and maybe some lingering showers on Sunday. Early in the morning, we'll see. Eugene, I know I kind of ripped through the weather there pretty quickly, but I also know you guys are watching a lot of other stuff going on.
We are. We're watching a few things that have just now popped up, and they are starting. We told you about the House Democrats and the Republicans both having separate events right now. We're expecting to hear from the president momentarily, and House Democrats are about to get started with this hearing about January 6th and making sure people remember that day. But right now, we actually want to start in Texas, where a judge is hearing the opening arguments in a case against a former school police officer who is accused of not doing enough in one of the worst attacks at a school shooting in U.S. history. We're talking about Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas. Adrian Gonzalez there has been charged with 29 counts of child abandonment or endangerment in this rare case in which a police officer is accused of not doing more to save lives. He has pleaded not guilty. Let's go live to the courtroom where a judge is now, again, expecting to hear opening statements in that case.
Accept a stipulation from the defense. However, there are some exceptions to that. One of the exceptions is found in Temez, which is kind of a classic case, and that was a DWI case where the person had 9 prior DWIs. The defense was willing to stipulate that, hey, he's been previously convicted twice before to get to the felony jurisdictional aspect. And the court said, the prosecution at the time said, we don't have to accept that stipulation. They went ahead and put on 9 DWIs. And the court came back and reversed and said, look, there is no probative value in light of a stipulation that's going to establish the issue that you want to establish in the first place. There's only prejudicial danger after that. There's also a federal case, Old Chief, which dealt with the felon in possession of a firearm. Felon in possession of a firearm, the defendant in that case had been convicted of a sex offense against a child. The defense was willing to stipulate that he had been convicted of a felony for the purposes of felon in possession of a firearm. The state said, we don't have to accept the stipulation, and went ahead and presented the fact to the jury that he had been convicted of sexually assaulting a child. And the court came back again and said, at some point, if the prejudicial danger is so high and the probative value is so low, we do have to accept a stipulation in that sense. This is not an issue in contention or dispute. No one is disputing that Salvador Ramos went into this classroom and killed 19 children and injured 10 others, as well as killed 2 adults, which is not charged conduct here. No one's disputing that he did all of those things. So since there is no dispute, showing gruesome, horrible, heartbreaking photographs to the jury, simply and merely to prove that the individual died or was injured, is it's kind of a foundational, fundamental 403 balancing test. I can think of, and I don't know if the court's seen any, but I can think of nothing that I have ever seen more prejudicial than these photographs, ever. And the probative value that the state is proffering can only be, because he didn't do those things to those children, it can only be to show that the children have died or were injured. And that probative value is incredibly low in light of the fact that that is not an issue that's ever been in dispute. As the court pointed out, we tried to address in voir dire, but the way we addressed it is they will hear injury and hear about it. We agree that the state can elicit testimony. So they don't even have to accept our stipulation. They can elicit testimony. They're obviously free to do that from any of the witnesses and the medical examiner and everybody else that the children suffered injuries. And even they can detail the nature of those injuries. That will establish as well their element. But as far as these photographs, they are so prejudicial, and the danger of that unfair prejudice affecting the fundamental constitutional right of the defendant to due process and to have a fair trial is great. And so on that issue, we are asking the court to exclude any photographs of any child who has died as a result of these injuries or has been injured as a result of this, and limit the state merely or only to the stipulation by the defense or in addition to the stipulation, because we are stipulating and will stipulate from the beginning, but in addition to that, testimony from the relevant people as to the injuries if the court believes that that's what's needed to prove the element of placing the child in danger of death. So I guess on that issue, there are some other issues in the motion, but on that issue, I will pass to my opposing counsel.
Have you reviewed the photographs?
Yeah, we have, Judge.
Could you tender them?
Oh, yes.
May I approach?
I'm sorry, I thought the court had seen them. I apologize. I thought you looked at them first.
Yes, sir.
And you, I know they don't trust me with sharp objects, but could I get a paperclip? Thank you very much.
You were listening there to an attorney in the case. It appears that they are trying to put forth a motion to remove some of the evidence that has been brought forth in that case against that former police officer in Uvalde, Texas. Specifically, it sounds like they're referring to images or any kind of documentation of injured or killed children in that case and testimony involving it as well. Remember, Adrian Gonzalez has been charged with 29 counts of child abandonment or endangerment in this case, accused of not doing enough. He says he's not guilty. That shooting in 2022 at Robb Elementary School ended up with 19 students and 2 teachers killed. Law enforcement who showed up to that scene, more than 400 officers responding that day, took 77 minutes to go in for a counter-assault against the teenage shooter. We will have much more of that throughout the day as it continues. Again, that is the trial against that ex-police officer in that case out of Uvalde, Texas. But right now, we see that President Trump has made his way to a podium at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., speaking to Republicans. This as House Democrats are holding their own hearing to remind people what happened 5 years ago today on January 6, 2021 at the Capitol. We're going to start with the president.
We had a very good day 2 days ago, too. But even if it's successful, they don't win. I don't know what it is. There's something psychological, like you vote against. You can win by a lot. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote by millions. We won everything. But they say that when you win the presidency, you lose the midterm. So you're all brilliant people. Most of you are in this business longer than me. That makes me smarter than you. Because look where I am, right? No, it doesn't. But I wish you could explain to me what the hell's going on with the mind of the public, because we have the right policy. They don't. They have horrible policy. They do stick together. They're violent. They're vicious. They're vicious people. And they stick together like glue. They don't have a couple of the people that we have. A couple of people, not too many, really very few. And that's why I want to just say that before we go any further, I want to express our tremendous sorrow at the loss of a great member, a great, great, great member, Congressman Doug LaMalfa, who passed away yesterday, as you probably have heard. And he was the leader of the Western Caucus, a fierce champion on California water issues. He was great on water. He wanted, release the water, he'd scream at him. And a true defender of American children. He was a defender of everybody. And our hearts go out to his wife, Jill, and his entire family. He voted with me 100% of the time. And by the way, he wasn't a 3 o'clock in the morning person. Do you know what I mean by that? Where the speaker goes, sir, could you call up? Could you call? I said, what time is it, Speaker? Sir, it's 3 in the morning. Could you make a couple of calls? How many? 9. So I'd start calling 3 in the morning. I said, I shouldn't use any names. I'm just going to create problems. But hi, Jim. And I'm not talking about Jim Jordan. I never had a call 3 in the morning for him. But I said, hi, Jim. How you doing? I just called to say hello. 3. Okay, sir. Sir, you haven't spoken to me in 3 years, and it's now 3 in the morning, so I know what you want. You want my vote? And usually almost always they'd give it, but they wanted to be called. And with Doug, I never had a call. He was with us right from the beginning. I love those guys. I must say I probably love them the best, the guys that I don't have to call. They know we're doing the right thing. I have a couple that are going to be with us all the way, but they just want the call. They want love. They need love. They're more insecure than most of you. It's true. No, most of you are secure people. They're all laughing. No, most of you are secure people. I had a couple say, look, I could have Trump call me all the time. I just have to break his ass a little bit. And he'll be calling. But I appreciate those. We actually had a little party. We opened up a beautiful section of the White House in the Rose Garden, and we had a party for all of those people that I never speak to and vote for me. And, I spoke to Doug, but I didn't speak to him never had a problem. And I was really saddened by his passing and was thinking about not even doing the speech in his honor But then I decided that I have to do it in his honor. I'll do it in his honor because he would have wanted it that way. He would have wanted it that way. He would have said, do that speech. Are you kidding me? Do the speech, big guy. But he was a fantastic person. Man, that was a quick one. I don't know quite yet what happened, but boy, it's a tough one. He was just with us. He was our friend, all of us, every one of us. And I also want to send our best wishes to Congressman Jim Baird and his wife, who are recovering from a car accident. They're going to be okay, but they had a pretty bad accident. And we're praying that they get out of that hospital very quickly. He's going to be fine. She's going to be fine, but it was a bad accident. And I want to thank the man who has been central to so many of our triumphs. He really has been. He's the guy that would call me to make those calls all the time. He's always working. And he's a nice person. You know, he's a high-quality person. But I want to tell you, he's a very tough cookie. I've seen both sides. Not often do I have to see the other side, because he's just, by nature, he's a very fine, religious. I like that. He's a religious person. I like that. I like religious people. It usually means they're more honest. Sometimes it doesn't happen that way. I've had some real religious ones that did numbers on me, and I said, I'm going to get them someday. They got me by surprise, but it's usually good, okay, right? And his name is Mike Johnson, Speaker Mike Johnson. He has my complete and total endorsement. Stand up, Speaker. So, you know, but it is true. A lot of times they'll say, I wish Mike were tougher. He's tough. He's tough as anybody in the room, actually. But can't be tough when you have a majority of 3. And now, sadly, a little bit less than that. I mean, a little bit less than that, maybe. But you can't be Trump. You can't, I want you. You know, you make 10 enemies, 20 enemies. That's the end of that, right? Everybody loves him. I would say there's one person he's given up on. I think he just gave up on this guy. He's so bad. He never votes for us. But no matter how good, he won't vote for us. There's a sickness there. You know, there's something wrong. You can have the greatest bill, the greatest for the country. Forget about for Republicans. Great, great, great for the country. I'm a no vote. We don't even bother calling him at 3 a.m, do we? Huh? But I want to thank another guy who's as tough as they come, because he went through something that none of us have gone through. I went through a little shot, but I get that throbbing feeling every once in a while. But what he went through was incredible. And that Steve Scalise, he got hit hard. Where's Steve? Steve. He's a tough cookie. He was dead. I went to the hospital. His wife was crying so much. She was a mess. Oh, yeah, she loves you. That's the only thing I learned about Steve, that he has a wife who loves him. Because I've gone to hospitals where guys are in bad shape, and the wife couldn't care less. She's waiting. She's looking for the next guy. Who's the next guy down the pike? Who the hell is the next guy? He's dying. I said, it's so bad. Oh, yeah. I had one where the dog died and the husband died at the same time. I said, it's so sad. Yes, I love this dog so much. She couldn't give it, and the guy left her a fortune. Can you imagine? I shouldn't have left her anything, but she was much more concerned. It's true. Oh, the dog was devastated. The husband, he was like an afterthought. Your wife loves you, Steve. She's a great wife. Another one who has a great wife, Jackie, is Tom Emmer, right? Look at you. You have a great wife, but you haven't been tested like these guys. You haven't. We don't want to test her, right? She's incredible. She's a strong, beautiful, great person. She's a great person. She actually liked me at the beginning when we were having little fights. We weren't even having fights. We just didn't know each other. And I heard he said something negative about me. He was sort of right about the subject, but you're not supposed to say ever, even though you're right. But Jackie was saying, I'm telling you, he's a great guy. He's good. He's going to be a great president, blah, blah, blah. She was fighting for me. And now I love this guy. He's great. She was right about both of us, I think, right? But Tom has been incredible. He's incredible at what he does. He's a great team player. Your conference chair, Lisa McLean, is so strong and powerful and beautiful. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. Thank you. And I think their broadcast, we said we don't care if the press comes or not. So when I say that, that means that they're broadcasting all this, and I'm letting my feelings out because it's true. I feel that way about so many people in the room. I could say it about many of the people in the room. Some I don't know as well, but many of the people in the room. They're incredible people. You're incredible what you're doing. We also have another one, Richard Hudson, Chairman, NRCC. Richard's always in there. Always with a smile. No matter what's happening, Richard. He always has a smile. He's just a positive guy, smart and positive. Thank you, Richard. Really appreciate it. You do a great job. Republican Policy Committee Chairman, Kevin Hern. Kevin, where are you, Kevin? Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. Did a great job. Every one of you got to be proud of yourselves. And basically the entire House Republican Conference. It's been really amazing what you've done. And we're going to give you some ammunition today. I said, I'd love to make a speech. Speaker asked me, would you make a speech? I said, sure. You think Biden would do that? Would you make a speech? What? First of all, people wouldn't ask him to make a speech because it never worked out well, right? Could never find the exits. You finish, look, stare here, stare there, stare here. You could jump off the front if you had to. No matter what he did, he got himself into trouble. So basically, they didn't ask him to, but if he did, it wouldn't be good. But it's good with me because, we have so much ammunition. We have ammunition. The problem is the fake news. That's why I like being on. I'd much rather do live television than do non-live because, when they say, as an example in my speech, peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol, peacefully and patriotically. Do you know that the Unselect Committee didn't report it, that I said those words? Do you know that the news never reported the words walk or march peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol? Do you know they never reported it? It's a scandal. The Unselect Committee never reported that. They never reported that Nancy Pelosi was offered 10,000 soldiers, National Guard soldiers, whatever you want. No, I don't want them. And the mayor. The mayors were in writing. She was more honorable about it. But Nancy got caught when her daughter did a documentary. She's a documentariist. And she has her mother saying, it's my fault. I should have taken the soldiers or something. I saw that in the documentary. I said, whoa, this was a major story. Has she spoken to her daughter since that, But they just, they are vicious people, even on the attack. And it was an amazing military feat that took place yesterday. Think of it. An amazing military. The people are saying, well, thank you. People are saying it goes down with one of the most incredible. It was so complex. 152 airplanes, many. Talk about boots on the ground. We had a lot of boots on the ground. But it was amazing. And think of it, nobody was killed. And on the other side, a lot of people were killed. Unfortunately, I say that, soldiers. Cubans, mostly Cubans, but many killed. And they knew we were coming, and they were protected, and our guys weren't. Our guys are jumping out of helicopters, and you're not protected, and they were. But it was so brilliant. The electricity for almost the entire country was, boom, turned off. That's when they knew there was a problem. There was no electricity. Caracas said, there's no electricity. It's not the only people with lights were the people that had candles. It was just off. So we sort of got them a little by surprise. But It was brilliant tactically. It was an incredible thing. But I watched where Schumer, he's such a bad guy. I mean, I've known the guy for a long time, and he's such a bad guy. At some point they should say, you did a great job. Thank you. Congratulations. Wouldn't it be good? I would say that if they did a good job. Their philosophies are so different. But if they did a good job, I'd be happy for the country. They've been after this guy for years and years and years. And, he's a violent guy. He gets up there and he tries to imitate my dance a little bit. But he's a violent guy. And he's killed millions of people. He's tortured. They have a torture chamber in the middle of Caracas that they're closing up. But he's tortured people. And now what they do, the radical left, they actually have people, and it's hard to get them. They're all paid people. Most of these people are paid. They're paid when they have brand new, beautiful printed signs by like the highest quality printer. And you have a woman, free Maduro. And the sign is before we even did the attack. Free Maduro. Why do you want him freed? I don't know, but he should be free. Oh, she reads a sign. What does that say? It says free. Well, that's what I believe. And you see the sign. It's like, Lisa, we should all have quality signage like that. The one thing I want their sign maker. The guy is great. He does beautiful signage. The old days was better when they used to write out their own sign, wasn't it? They'd make a sign in the basement. They'd have an old broken board holding up a sign, and it's made with a magic marker, sloppy as hell, and it meant something. But today, when you have that yellow and black, they should use different colors a little bit. But the yellow is a beautiful shade of yellow. Now I want to find out who that is. I want him to work for the Republican campaign. He's much better than our guy, whoever the guy is. But the United States proved once again that we have the most powerful, most lethal, most sophisticated, and most fearsome. It's a fearsome military on planet Earth, and it's not even close. I've been saying it for a long time. Nobody can take us. Nobody. We don't want to have it. We don't have a discussion, but you read all and you see everything else. Nobody could have done that. Nobody has our weapons. Nobody has the quality of our weapons. The problem is we don't produce them fast enough. We're going to start producing them much faster. We're going to be very tough on the companies. We have the best weapons in the world, but it takes too long to get them, including allies. When allies want to buy them, they have to wait 4 years for a plane, 5 years for a helicopter. We're not letting that happen anymore. We're telling our defense contractors, you're going to start building faster. Guy makes... I have a big problem with it. I'm the king. I have sold more Boeings than any human being on earth. They gave me an award, Salesman of the Year. I said, what about Salesman of in the history of Boeing? I've sold more Boeing planes than any man in history by far, probably over 1,000. Over 1,000 planes. I said, that's the good news. But why should they wait 3-4 years to get a plane? They should build them, get them immediately. The F-35s, it takes too long to get them. The Apache helicopter. I mean, I had India coming to me, sir, I've been waiting 5 years. We're changing it. We're changing it. India ordered 68 Apaches, and Prime Minister Modi came to see me. Sir, may I see you, please? Yes. I have a very good relationship with him. He's not that happy with me because, they're paying a lot of tariffs now because they're not doing the oil, but they are. They've now reduced it very substantially, as you know, from Russia. We're getting rich because of tariffs, by the way. I hope everyone understands that. They hate to report. We're going to have over $650 billion poured into our country or coming in shortly because of tariffs. They're finding all of these pockets of money. A couple of weeks ago, sir, we're off by $39 billion. Oh, is that good or bad? Meaning, do we have it or are we short of it? Sir, it's $39 billion that we can't account for. That means we have an extra 39. Yes, sir. I said, well, what are you saying? We just don't know where it came from. I said, check the tariff shelf. Sir, that tariff doesn't start until September. He said, no. It started about a month and a half ago. Check it. Comes back 25 minutes later. Sir, you were right. It came from tariffs. This never happened to us before, where we find plus 39 billion, not million, plus 39 billion. They were missing. We've taken in $650 billion or shortcoming, and that's because I'm being nice. If I want to be, and we have national security because of tariffs. And frankly, we have a big Supreme Court case. I hope they do what's good for our country. I hope they do the right thing. The president has to be able to wheel and deal with tariffs. Now,
okay, we are listening to President Trump right now speaking to House Republicans there in Washington, D.C. at the Kennedy Center. Meanwhile, we are still monitoring the House Democrats who are holding a hearing to remind people of what took place 5 years ago today on January 6, 2021, on that attack on the Capitol building where protesters rioted there opposed to the certification of the election results that year. But you just heard the president speaking to major news, both from a national scale, but in California. He announced the death of 7-term Congressman Doug LaMalfa, a Republican out of California, 65 years old. At this time, the reports show that it's unknown what the cause of death has been. But you heard the president speak to not only his impact in the state, but what it could potentially mean nationally, as he says it does now reduce the majority that Republicans have in the House. Okay, we actually have two people who can speak to the significance of this loss in Congress right now. We have our executive producer here for 13 News Now, Samantha Spinacci, who is here. But Samantha worked in Sacramento previously, and she has on the phone with her anchor Alex Bell from ABC 10 there, also who has done extensive reporting on Congressman LaMalfa. So first I'll say thank you, Samantha, for coming in. And Alex, if you can hear me, thank you for joining us over the phone. So I want to start by saying we don't know what the cause is officially for LaMalfa's death, but are you surprised hearing about his passing?
Yeah, I think for us here in Sacramento, this was quite shocking. We hadn't heard anything in terms of him being sick or having any health issues. And I was just with him on his ranch to speak to him about Proposition 50 and the impact specifically to his district, because his district was one of 3 that we were heavily watching in terms of flipping Democratic. And I spent the whole day with him, walked around town, and I didn't get any indication that he was sick or something was wrong, and nothing was mentioned by him or his family, or even meeting some of the people that worked on his farm there.
So 7 terms. He had been in that seat for quite some time. Tell us a little bit about his popularity there and what was going on with that seat here recently. It sounds like obviously he had quite the support in the community, or was his seat even up for grabs at any point?
Well, here in Northern California, Doug LaMalfa, especially for the people in Congressional District 1, I would say that he is more than a congressman. Mm-hmm. This area in Northern California is very, very rural. There's a lot of farming production that happens, especially for our rice fields, and that's what LaMalfa and his family have done for generations, is own rice fields to this day. When I said that I was up in his ranch at the end of last year, around October-ish, that's what he was doing, was showing me his rice field, showing me how rice is grown and how they get it to our tables. And we obviously spent a lot of time just in District 1 in Richvale and Oroville, in Chico. And we talked to a lot of people on the street, and it was very difficult to find someone who didn't love Doug LaMalfa. And I use the word love because these constituents, these people that live here, they felt as, he wasn't just a congressman, he was a farmer. He was one of them. You always saw him in flannel. Sam can attest to this.
Yes.
Every time we did an interview with him, he was always in flannel. We were trying to, get him, and his team would say, hold on, he's on the ranch. We got to have him come over, These people, and Sam, I think you can speak to this too, they loved him more than a congressman. They truly felt like he was one of them, and he's lived in the area, decades, and farmed in the area. And I think people had a very distinct love for him because of that.
I think, coming into Sacramento, me moving there was kind of like a name that everyone just knew off the bat. It was like Doug LaMalfa, like he was a part of Northern California, where I don't think, like you said, he's been there for many terms, consecutive terms. People knew him in the area. It wasn't like his seat was heavily contested. And if it was there wasn't, a close race in a lot of those years. So he's a big name, and I think I gasped out loud when I saw this news, just because we've interviewed him, we've talked to him. We did a special last year about the state of the insurance crisis in California, and he was a big topic about that because of wildfires, which I know a wildfire just happened late last year that was in his district that impacted a lot of people that live there. So home insurance is a big topic that he would talk about as well. I think it's very shocking.
I want to turn now to the impact here nationally, even beyond just there in California. The president speaking today and saying that House Speaker Mike Johnson sometimes can't be as tough because he only had a 3-majority lead in the House, and obviously with LaMalfa's passing, that reduces by 1. You would imagine at this point, a big conversation in who has power in the House has been all of this fight to redistrict all of the seats across the country. California, big with that. I'm looking at you guys' reporting in ABC 10 from the fall. LaMalfa was very adamant and vocal against that push to change the districts in California. Can you talk to his significance in that fight? And was his seat one of the ones that could potentially have been redrawn?
Yeah, so we spent a lot of time in his district specifically, because if you think of, California, his district is really at the top of the state. We're talking about the California-Oregon border, getting down to, closer to where we are in Sacramento. It's kind of hard to explain, but just map-wise, if you think about the top of the state. And then there's areas like Richvale, Willows, Durham, and Chico that really encompass his area. So it's a very large area when you look at the map. He's been in that district for a really long time. When I went there, a lot of people, especially in the rural areas, were like, look, we don't want our representation to change. When you get a little bit more inland to areas like Chico, a little bit more suburban and less rural, there were, quite a number of people that are like, look, we're ready for a change. And so even when I interviewed him, it's interesting. He told me there's about 30% of voters in his district that might be ready for new representation, but he was adamant that his focus remains on, making policies that benefit everyone in his district. And I would say last year he really got a lot of heat at a lot of the town halls that he was a part of. A lot of people had questions. A lot of people weren't happy. But on the flip side, there were a lot of people that do really like the job that he did in his district. All that to say is, since Proposition 50 was announced, he was definitely adamantly against it. He thought that this was not going to be beneficial, not only to his party, but for the reflection of the people that live in his community. He didn't feel that a Democrat could come in and run it the way that he could. He didn't feel that people, specifically Democrats, could understand the people that live there and, their experiences, what they go through, the policies, whether it be agriculture or water, that they weren't going to understand the land there and how to operate it. And so we did speak to a few people that jumped into the race, one being Audrey Denny out of Chico. We spent a lot of time with her. I would say the biggest name that has jumped in the race since Proposition 50 has passed would be Mike McGuire. This is former, as of yesterday, the Senate President Pro Tem Mike McGuire, who's also been in office for a very long time. He launched his announcement at the end of last year, around November. And so I really think you're going to see a lot more Democrats potentially pop up for this seat, given now the very unfortunate circumstances.
Again, you're listening to Alex Bell, ABC 10 there in Sacramento, and then our executive producer here at 13 News Now, Samantha Spinacci. I think my last question to you, again, thank you for being so gracious with your time here on the dot, is as you're going through the next few hours reporting on this, what are some of the key questions that you're going to be trying to figure out and get answered upon hearing this news?
For me, to be 100% honest, my first initial thought when I saw the news, Sam and I have worked very closely with his team. Mm-hmm. I don't think that I have any questions. I think it's more reaching out to his team. And, I met his son at the ranch, and his family was just so kind and so welcoming and let us go anywhere on the ranch, ask him any question. I mean, we were there for over 9 hours. and even just days spending time in the town. I think for me as a journalist, this is a time where there aren't actually any questions to ask. It's just letting his team know. And this would be for anybody on any side of the aisle, letting them know that I'm very sorry for their loss.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because his team has been with him, I would say, for almost his entire tenure. Like, his team were by phone, by email. It's a loss for the community too, because like Alex has said, like, he is a farmer up there. He does have like a big impact where it's like a very close knit. Yes, this has an impact politically, but it's a life loss, and it's a significant life loss for the people who live in that district.
Yeah. Speaks to the relationships that he built, that you all built with him and his team. Sounds like a significant loss, not just in the grand scheme of what now we look at from the nation, but for that community and for you guys as well.
Yeah.
Alex, thank you so much for joining us. Alex Bell from ABC 10, and then Samantha Spinacci right here at 13 News Now. We appreciate both of you, and then also I'm sure, as I'm hearing from you, it's a tough day for the two of you as well. So we appreciate your time in speaking on this topic.
Of course.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, there you have it. Big news that is coming out. The President of the United States just speaking before House Republicans there at the Kennedy Center, saying that seven-term Congressman Doug LaMalfa has died. And you just heard from Samantha and Alex, just the overall impact that he has had in the California area, and then also the grand scheme of things, which when it comes to the national discourse and what happens with the majority in the House, those will be questions that will come later. But rightfully, Alex and Samantha speaking to the human side of things, this is a sad day for all who would know and interact with LaMalfa. Clearly, he had a huge support there in California. The president is still speaking right now before House Republicans. We're going to keep an eye on that. We're recording it too, so we might be able to come back to it later. But right now, let's listen to the House Democrats, who are holding a separate hearing to remind people what took place 5 years ago today on January 6, 2021, and the attack on the nation's capital there as protesters rioted against the certification of the results from the 2020 presidential election. We are also expected within this to hear from former two-term Congresswoman Elaine Luria, right here from Hampton Roads, who is going to be participating in that hearing, along with ex-law enforcement, state officials, and others who were in the Capitol, again, 5 years ago today. Let's turn our attention there now to this hearing by House Democrats.
And started educating myself about January the 6th. I knew what I did was wrong. I pleaded guilty to my crimes because I did the crime. I received due process, and the DOJ was not weaponized against me. When Donald Trump pardoned us, I rejected the pardon. Accepting that pardon would be lying about what happened on January the 6th. I am guilty, and I own that guilt. 5 years ago, I traveled from Idaho to D.C. to see Donald Trump speak. I had fallen for the president's lies, just like many of his supporters. Local people had welcomed me into the circle when I was around them. I heard them saying things like, the Democrats are trying to turn this into a communist country, or the radical left wants to do away with our Constitution. The gaslighting caused a lot of fear, and I was scared. With that fear in my heart, I came here on January the 6th. I went from Trump's speech to the Capitol because I thought Mr. Trump would go to the Capitol with us. I heard people saying that Trump was going to walk down to the Capitol, so I went. Well, as you know, Donald Trump never showed. But the rioters did, and the attack began. The police officers were the heroes. They protected the Capitol and everyone inside the Capitol, and even people like me. I was trampled on by the rioters. And if it weren't for the Capitol Police helping me that day, I might have died. To the Capitol Police officers sitting, if I may address you for a minute. I am truly sorry from the bottom of my heart for being part of the mob that put you and so many officers in danger. I want the Capitol Police to know how truly grateful I am to them and how deeply sorry I am. I can't believe people are still disrespecting you and trying to lie about January the 6th. I will do everything I can to stop the lies about our brave officers like you who protected us during the attack. Thank you. Speaking about January the 6th has caused a great risk to my personal safety. I have been doxxed online, harassed, and physically assaulted. But I am here, and I don't care. I won't let it stop me. I can't sit here while Mr. Trump and others are lying. I also want others who feel like me to know that we must stop the lies being pushed by the Republican leaders and Trump himself. Thank you again for having me here. I am glad for the opportunity to speak to you and answer any of your questions.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I'd like to thank our witnesses in total for their powerful testimony. Officer Prejean, thank you for your service. One thing we've heard from the MAGA folks is that January 6th was just a normal tourist visit at the Capitol. Nothing but some protesters who got too rowdy. I'd like to begin by asking this panel, based on what you know of January 6th, from being there to prosecuting to studying it, do you agree with that statement? And what would you say to those who would downplay what happened that day 5 years ago? And Officer Prejean, we'll start with you, and we'll go down the line.
Thank you. I would absolutely not agree. That statement that it was a normal tourist visit is completely false. I spent over 5 years at the Capitol dealing with many actual normal tourist day visits, and this was not one at all. It is offensive to me, and I'm sure to many of my fellow officers, to hear it so diminished when we make sacrifices day in and day out and over the years in service to Congress, and that includes working around the clock, missing holidays and family events, and to have it be so whitewashed and so diminished is incredibly offensive. And to those who say that, I wish they would actually listen to what we are saying here today and actually talk to officers like myself who experienced firsthand brutal violence that day.
Thank you so much. Mr. Ballou?
For those who question whether January 6th was a day of violence, they should just look at the tape. This was the most documented crime in American history, and it's obvious what happened there. In terms of what the experience was like for those who were there, In the course of being part of the teams that investigated and prosecuted rioters, we had the opportunity to talk to many U.S. Capitol Police and Metropolitan Police Department officers. If you talk to most officers, they're pretty stoic folks. The number of officers that we had that candidly broke down crying in our office, still processing the horror of that day, is something that's very hard to forget. And I think that pain is evidence alone of how violent that day was.
Professor.
Yes, the video shown this morning makes clear this was not a normal day of peaceful protest. I've never seen tourists break through windows and come in the second floor or scale the walls of the Capitol in my nearly 40 years in Washington, D.C. But I would also say this is dangerous because these lies about January 6th cause more conspiracy theories. The theory that it was a Fedsurrection, not an insurrection. In other words, that it was actually put on by federal government and had federal agents who were actually agitating the protests. The idea that the new charges against the person who allegedly planted the pipe bombs is a cover-up for some scheme that a Capitol Police officer planted those pipe bombs. These are dangerous conspiracy theories that will continue to provoke political violence. And the theory that those who were pardoned are victims and who they are owed something, reparations, other types of rewards for their victimization, seeds even more of that. So no, Mr. Chairman, I disagree very much with the rhetoric.
Thank you so much. Ms. Hemphill?
Thank you for the question. You can't gaslight me. I was there. I saw what you did. I saw the officers being pepper sprayed. When I was on the steps, I watched one of them fall down and hit his head and his back. So don't be telling me it wasn't violent. Don't come to me with that ever again. I watched you. I was on the east side. But I saw what you did.
Thank you so much. I now recognize other members for question as we identified. Mr. Swalwell, you recognize.
Thank you. Since the Civil War, the three most important days in American history are December 7, 1941, September 11, and January 6. And we don't need the years for the last two because we know what happened. They aren't dates on the calendar, they're scar tissue. And as you just said, Ms. Hemphill, we saw them unfold live and in terrifying detail with our own eyes. But 5 years later, Donald Trump has pardoned the insurrectionists. The steps have been cleaned, the broken glass has been repaired, and because the 22nd Amendment says he can't run again, maybe we exhale. If this country had one word that defined its march higher, it wouldn't be liberty or justice, it would be next. Because we have a tendency to just move on so quickly from the tragedies that define us. We have a tendency to not look back, but I can't do that. I'm the son of a cop, the brother of cops, a former prosecutor who stood up in a courtroom defending the idea of the people. But you don't need a badge on your chest to know that January 6th was a moral crater. You don't need a law degree on your wall to know that in a country like ours, we don't tolerate violence. You don't choose the criminal over the constable. What Trump is attempting to do is to gaslight a nation on an industrial scale. It's the same playbook the fringe theorists used after September 11. They told us there were no planes. They told us it was holograms, missiles, a controlled demolition. We didn't buy that nonsense then, and we cannot whitewash history now. Ms. McCord, I was hoping you'd engage in a hypothetical with me and put aside the politics. Picture George Bush. Remember him standing on the pile of twisted steel at Ground Zero, his arm around a retired firefighter, holding that bullhorn. He bucked us up. He gave us a spine when ours was fractured. Now, imagine if he had been the one to incite the attacks. Imagine if he had held a rally in Battery Park 10 minutes before impact. Imagine if he had pointed at the towers and told a seething, armed crowd to fight like hell, to stop the steal, and make them do the right thing. Could January 6th have happened if Donald Trump had not called to assemble the mob?
I think that it could not, Representative Swalwell, and I think Jack Smith's testimony during his deposition recently makes that very clear. The evidence amassed about what Donald Trump knew, how many people, Republicans included, had told him there was no fraud in the election that's significant enough to change the results. His own attorney general had told them that. He called the crowd knowing that they responded to his dog whistles. And when he knew there was violence, when he knew that his own vice president was in danger, dire danger, that the mob had erected a gallows and said, hang Mike Pence, he let things continue and continued to let things continue. And according to Jack Smith's testimony the other day and the indictments, even the night after, the night of January 6th, he was still agitated. And we know that because 5 years later, he continues to propound those lies. I don't think, just for the record, George W. Bush would have ever said anything like that. Whatever policy disagreements those in this room may have with him, he is a man of integrity who would have never done such a thing.
Agreed. And on January 6th, what you just described is what happened. That's the reality. It's important that we tackle the future. More than ever, it's coming at us at a breathtaking speed. But if we don't acknowledge a past wound, it stays poisoned. If we don't right these wrongs, we don't just get a repeat of January 6th, we get January 7th and 8th. And the country we are barely holding on to now will slip forever through our fingers. It doesn't matter who you voted for. Our job, our civic sacrament is to reject the comforting lie, even when it comes from our friends, as Pamela Hemphill has told us. So we remember, we don't look away. We treat the day with the same reverence, the same sorrow, and the same resolve as the day the towers fell, because the moment we forget is the moment we, as a country, also fall. And I yield back.
Thank you, gentlemen. Time has expired. We now recognize for 3 minutes the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Raskin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Hemphill, thank you so much for joining us today. Pardons are supposed to be reserved for people who are contrite, who are repentant, who have paid their debt to society and are reformed and are no longer dangerous to society. On those standards, you may be the only one of the J6 insurrectionists who actually deserves a pardon, and yet they all got pardons and accepted them. You were granted a pardon as part of the en masse action, but you decided not to take it. Can you just elaborate a little bit further why you decided not to take the removal of the criminal record?
Thank you for the question. I do not deserve a pardon for what I did on January the 6th. I deserve to finish my sentence. I broke the law. To me, taking a pardon would be a slap in the Capitol Police's face. It was wrong that day. And you don't take a pardon for when you broke the law. No, ever. I'm sorry, I just get so angry.
Well, I was not aware, we've spoken before on the phone, but I was not aware that you had suffered harassment and that people were attacking you in the wake of your announcement. I wonder if you would just say a further word about that.
Attacking me on January the 6th or recently?
No, I mean, in the wake of not accepting the pardon, that there was a backlash against you, that you were...
Oh, yeah. They find out you support me, they come after you. It's that bad. I don't care. I'm going to keep speaking out.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And Ms. McCord, but would you describe how the methodology and the history of these pardons differs from the history of pardons generally?
How much time do we have? So the pardon attorney is an office within the Department of Justice that normally reviews the applications for pardons, and they look at things like the person's criminal record, their individual characteristics, the things you already mentioned, right? What is their contrition? What have they done with their lives since they committed their crimes? And all of these things are taken into consideration, and recommendations are being made to the president. Here, so far as I can tell, the pardon attorney was completely sidelined, and there was no individualized assessment about the criminal records of those that were going to be pardoned. Criminal records before January 6th, their indications of dangerousness, whether they had accepted responsibility, it was just en masse. So it is as far removed from anything that I've ever seen. The closest is the pardons of draft defectors after Vietnam. Very, very, very different situation.
Okay, again, you're listening right now to House Democrats holding an unofficial panel hearing there in Washington, D.C. on the 5th year since the January 6 attacks on the U.S. Capitol. They say they want to make sure that people remember what happened that day for the truth that took place that day. You're listening to several former law enforcement officials who are part of that panel who were there that day, including also a woman who says that she rejected a pardon from the president for her actions that day. Just a quick recap, too, to remind those of our viewers about what happened January 6, 2021. 5 people died during or after that attack, including 4 protesters and 1 police officer. More than 140 officers were injured. Nearly 1,600 people were charged in connection to that riot. That includes those for assault, for using a deadly or dangerous weapon and causing injury to an officer. Now, the president, since coming into office a second time, has erased all the cases in a sweeping act of clemency on his first day back in the White House. He said that he would pardon and get rid of those cases. On Monday of this week, House Democrats released 2 different reports examining the aftermath of the attack in the first year of President Trump's second term. That includes looking at those sweeping pardons. And you heard them speak to it a little bit there when we came out of that hearing. Meanwhile, the Associated Press has reported an official plaque that was meant to honor the police who defended the Capitol building that day currently is nowhere to be seen despite it being required by law. There are 2 police officers who have been suing the administration to get that plaque up somewhere, as again, it was required by law that was signed back in 2022. So they're holding that hearing there. We're monitoring it also because former Congresswoman Elaine Luria, we could see her seated behind those who are currently on the panel. She's expected to speak as a part of this discussion. She was on the original January 6th committee. Again, she is not currently in Congress. She is running to get back into her seat, but she's right here from Hampton Roads. When she comes up, we will hope to bring her up and listen to what she has to say. Meanwhile, the president is speaking right now before House Republicans at the Kennedy Center. So let's turn our attention to what the president is saying at this moment.
Put a 20% penalty tax on China, and it's drying up because the tax is far more than they make with fentanyl. But with the other nations, I said, you're going to do it. And you know what he said? You can't do that to me. I said, yes, I can. Don't worry about it. It's not going to be that bad. You just have to explain it to your people, your 39 million people, that, by the way, don't vote by mail. They vote on paper ballots. They tried voting by mail, and there was fraud all over the country. We're the only country that votes by mail, essentially. You know that, right? You know, Speaker, that's another thing. We're the only country that's stupid enough to vote by mail. Even Jimmy Carter's commission said, don't do it. But just to finish so that you won't say he wanders. Emmanuel said to me, Donald, you have a deal. I would love to increase my prescription drug prices by 200% or whatever. I would love to do it. It'd be such an honor. Whatever you want, Donald, please. Don't tell the population. Please, Donald, I beg you. Every country said the same thing. No, 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 we will not do this. Some were strong, some were very nice, some were rude. But they all said one thing: no, we won't. And within, I'd say on average, 3.2 minutes, they were all saying, we would be honored to quadruple our drug prices. So we would be honored to quadruple our prices if that's what you like. We want to make you happy. Okay. Therefore, I will not charge you a tariff, and you're going to increase your drug prices by 3 times what they were paying 2 days ago, right? And we have now favored nation. You think Biden could do that? I don't think so. Think Biden ever thought of it? Now, everybody's wanted favored nations, but everybody knew it was impossible to get the countries to agree to it because they wouldn't have done. And they've been doing this for 40 years or whatever it is. We were subsidizing the entire world. That's just one of the many things we're giving. But you should take that thing. That's going to save. Now, that also, when you add that to healthcare, your drug prices are much lower than what you projected. So we're going to reduce healthcare by a lot. One other thing. On healthcare, it's never been our issue. It should be our issue. We had a very nasty vote from a couple of people. I guess Collins, I guess Lisa Murkowski, and I guess a man named John McCain. Remember? Thumbs down. You remember. He said, I'm all for 10 years.
Okay, again, the president speaking before people at the Kennedy Center there this morning. He mentioned there that the U.S. is the only country that votes by mail. That's not true. There are dozens of countries across the world that use some form of mail-in voting. But he was speaking there about the importance of health care. And as the House is coming back into session today, the Senate reconvened yesterday, and they'll be back on the floor today as well. A big discussion that is expected to come is on the newly expired ACA tax credits. A vote is expected some point this month. Not exactly sure when at this time. At least I'm not sure when that's coming, but we were told that it was coming some form this month. Again, that's as those enhanced tax credits expired, which could impact or is impacting about 24 million Americans with their premiums skyrocketing here since that took place in the new year. Okay, also something we're following right now is in Texas. We actually opened up a portion of the show with this. This as a Texas judge is hearing from lawyers on both sides of a rare case of a former police officer who has now been prosecuted, accused of not doing enough in that horrific, deadly shooting at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas. We're talking about the trial of ex-officer Adrian Gonzalez facing 29 counts of child abandonment or endangerment. In that case, he has pleaded not guilty. Right now, it appears there is a lawyer that is speaking in court. We're going to go to that case right now, let you listen in as that trial is underway.
That when that happens and the last kid enters, she's face to face with the gunman. And he fires on her and she turns to run. And when she turns to run, she trips and she falls. And when she gets up, Adrian Gonzalez, the police officer, is there. And she says, he's over there. She urges him to go get him. Adrian Gonzalez says, where? Over there. He's wearing black. He's in the teacher's parking lot. As shots are ringing out. This is not confusion. He gets on the radio and says, shots are fired. He's wearing black. He's in the parking lot. He knows where he is. But Adrian Gonzalez remains at the south side of the school. The gunman makes his way up the west side of the west building where the fourth graders are. He fires shots into a classroom full of children at 102. Adrian Gonzalez remains. He moves down to classroom 104, fires shots into the classroom of 104. Adrian Gonzalez remains. He moved halfway down the wing, fires more shots, this time not into the building because there's no defect in the building. It's not going into the windows. It's not going into the bricks. It's also at the same time, when forces are coming, other police officers are starting to arrive. He then hurries to the west door and enters. It's been a minute. And there's a break in the shooting, and Adrian Gonzalez remains. That gunman then walks down the hallway, gets to room 111 and 112, the entryway, and fires in the neighborhood of 20 shots in the hallway. And Adrian Gonzalez remains. The children in 111 and 112 are done as they're trained. In the dark, lights off, be quiet, hide, and wait for Adrian Gonzalez. And the gunshots get near, and the slaughter begins. One of the shots penetrates the window going out of room 111. Melanie Flores is still urging Adrian Gonzalez to go in. She sees the shot come through the window. Adrian Gonzalez tells the police he sees the shot go through the window. Adrian Gonzalez gets on the radio and says, "Guys, I think he's made it in the building." This isn't confusion. Adrian Gonzalez remains. For the next minute and a half, about 60 shots go into children. And Adrian Gonzalez remains. 3.5 minutes into this ordeal, while Adrian Gonzalez is still standing out there, his boss shows up. Pete Arredondo, along with Sergeant Coronado. They're running up adjacent to another building, get about the same distance Adrian Gonzalez is from the gunshots, and they hear the shots going off. And Coronado yells what you would expect a police officer to yell. "Shots fired, get in the building." 3.5 minutes later. So Adrian Gonzalez joins the other two officers and Donald Page, who's just arrived, and they go into the building. He enters the building 3 minutes and 45 seconds after he got there, and after the damage is done. So we ask ourselves, was this his first day on the job? Was he a rookie? Adrian Gonzalez was a veteran of 10 years. He'd been at the Uvalde Police Department for 10 years. He'd been at the school district for a year. He had thousands of hours of training. He went to compel training, which was active shooter training, which is pretty straightforward. When you hear gunshots, you go to the gunfire. But it wasn't just active shooter training. They didn't just sit in a classroom, they practiced. They practiced what do you do if it's in an open area, like this open area. And they trained Adrian Gonzalez how to do his job safely. And that is, you look for concealment and cover. Concealment means the gunman can't see you. It may not protect you if he shoots, but he can't see you. Cover means you're protected. The corner of a building means you're protected. We're not asking Adrian Gonzalez to commit suicide. He has been trained to go to the corner of a building and distract, delay, and impede the gunman while help is arriving. But Adrian Gonzalez does nothing more than mic his microphone and tell other officers what's going on. So why are we here? When a child is in danger and calls 911, we have the right to expect a response.
May I proceed, Judge?
Please, if I may have a moment to rewrite the law, I got a piece on the map here.
All right.
Again, Adrian Gonzalez there, the former school police officer in Uvalde, Texas, being charged and the trial underway in his accusation of not doing enough. Again, that day resulting in the deaths of 19 children and 2 teachers, a teenage gunman opening fire there at Robb Elementary. Hundreds of officers responding, but it took them over an hour to confront that gunman. It has been a major story for the last several years since that took place in 2022, that community really being critical of the law enforcement response. Gonzalez now undergoing a rare prosecution for police in that particular case. We're continuing to monitor that, but we also are going to go ahead and return to the House Democratic Committee panel hearing, that is taking place live right now in Washington. Here marking the 5th year since the attacks on the Capitol on January 6, 2021. They are holding this hearing, they say, to remind people of the facts that happened on that day. Let's listen to where they are now in that hearing.
Let's just say hypothetically that Joe Antifa showed up at the Capitol, upset that this president was doing away with his health care and causing him to spend more money at the grocery store and at the gas station because of the tariffs. And let's just say that Joe came up and he was so upset that he started bear spraying and pepper spraying and beating up members of the Capitol Police because he was so outraged. Would it be right to call Joe Antifa a patriot?
No, absolutely. He committed a crime.
And would it be right to arrest him?
Absolutely. And if I can just briefly say, this isn't a hypothetical. You know, the Department of Justice was prosecuting protesters that turned into rioters from the summer of 2020, the very same, 12-month period. And the analysis was, at least the initial analysis, was that those rioters actually received harsher sentences than those from January 6th.
That's right. And yet this president said that we assaulted the January 6ers, right, the insurrectionists, and that they were illegally detained, and in fact sort of presume that they didn't receive any due process. I'm so glad that you're sharing with us that it is not a hypothetical, that in fact it happened. And I just also want to share, Mr. Chair, that now we've learned that the Department of Justice is actually and actively deleting records of the January 6th cases, that they are scrubbing references to the January 6th insurrection as a riot, and in fact have fired prosecutors that worked on all of these cases. Would you agree to those statements?
Yes.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. Chair, I recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Castro, for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. And I want to say thank you to each of you for your courage and for your bravery and your candor today. I had the opportunity to serve as an impeachment manager to try to convict Donald Trump in the Senate, thanks to the appointment of, at the time, Speaker Nancy Pelosi. January 6th was an attempted coup. The mob that showed up was trying to stop Congress from doing its job of accepting the election results of the 2020 presidential election. And on that day, Donald Trump left everyone in this building for dead. Our brave police officers, elected officials of both parties, of course, but also our staff who work here in the House and the Senate, the journalists who covered this place, people that are not often discussed, like maintenance workers, cafeteria workers, all of the support staff in these buildings. Their lives were at stake as well. And for 5 years, we've had to listen to Donald Trump and others whitewash that history and pretend as though it was a tourist visit or something peaceful. That day was a dangerous day, not just for the people in this building, but for our democracy and our country. So thank you, each of you, for the roles that you played. Thank you, Ms. Hemphill, for the grace that you've shown in accepting responsibility for what you did and also acknowledging the truth of that day and that mob. I wanted to ask you, Mr. Ballou and Ms. McCord, you know, we exist now in a time of social media where misinformation, lies, distortions can become accepted as truth, unlike any other time in human history. And Donald Trump has exploited that, and his hardcore supporters have exploited that. What work remains in making sure that this never happens again in the United States of America?
Thank you, Congressmember. Yeah, you know, one of the problems is that social media and technology companies basically bear no responsibility when it comes to the way their platforms are misused, the way that their algorithms amplify extreme content. And people, unfortunately, many studies have shown if you do not yourself break out of that loop of more and more extremist content, you will just be feeding more and more. So I think, one thing for Congress to take under consideration, and I know it's a very difficult task, is, what to do about the Communications Decency Act.
Sure.
And I'll just add very briefly, I think, one of the best antidotes to that is the people who were at the Capitol that day speaking out. Obviously, members like yourselves, but, the Capitol police officers, including Officers Dunn and Hodges, who are here today, I think have shown enormous personal courage.
Thank you. I'll yield back, Jim.
My name is Adrian Gonzalez. I was a January 6th defendant, and I'd like to respectfully ask, why is this committee only composed of Democrats?
I'm glad you asked, because no Republicans participated. No, you're not part of the thing. You're welcome to be here as a spectator. Thank you very much. Chair now recognizes young lady from Pennsylvania, Ms. Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank our leadership for convening us here in this basement room, crowded in here, because I guess the Republican majority didn't want to see this in a bigger, more open space. As Jamie Raskin said in the beginning, it is still January 6th in America. And that is why we are here, to make sure that we continue to shine a light on the grievous errors of that day and those who perpetrated it, particularly Mr. Trump. I believe that his pardons on the very first day of his second administration was an attempt to pardon himself for all of history. Just wash it away. I didn't do anything wrong. It was a party and they were patriots. I want to tell you, Ms. Hemphill, Sophocles emphasized that to make a mistake is human, but real wisdom comes when you recognize your mistake and you correct it. You're an extraordinary role model. I think about you, you said you're a mom and a grandmom. What a role model you are for your grandchildren. To give them that sense of, I am human, I made a mistake, and I'm going to correct it publicly. That's hard to do privately in your own home. I know it. I'm human. I have a hard time admitting mistakes sometimes. I just want to tell you, your humility, your courage, I pray that it is contagious. May it take over this country, and I thank you for it. Ms. McCord, thank you for your clarity, your guidance. Keep speaking, keep guiding us, and together we're going to make a difference. Officer Pynchon, thank you so much for your work. How difficult was it for you to leave the service?
It was very difficult because I loved my job. I loved being an officer, and I'm so thankful for my years that I had here. I didn't leave only because of January 6th, but it did certainly play a factor. And I think quite possibly had January 6th not happened, I would still be an officer here today.
And I thank you and all the officers. We have seen the faces of so many of you, but every single officer needs to be recognized and thanked, whether they were on duty, off duty. I know so many of you, and you're great people. And finally, I too was here on January the 6th up in the gallery, and Mr. Ballou, I totally share with you the idea that symbols matter. I've actually met with the architect of the Capitol twice and asked that an installation be preserved for all of history. I recognize that's not going to be installed anytime soon under this administration or under this Speaker of the House, who won't even put up a plaque. But I really call upon this House, the Capitol, the architect of the Capitol, and I actually wrote a letter and asked, what artifacts did you preserve? The broken glass, the shards, everything that you preserved. I never got an answer to that letter, but I call again. What do you think about that notion that we need to preserve this history?
It's absolutely the only way that this isn't going to happen again.
I thank you.
Thank you very much. Chair now recognizes our last person, Ms. Ballant from Vermont.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witness for being here today. I'd like to most wholeheartedly thank Ms. Hemphill for your courage in speaking out. By being here today, you are showing more bravery than so many of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle that still refuse to admit what happened on January 6th. And I'm grateful that you're here. You talked in your opening statement about what you witnessed that day, about the violence. You said, nobody's going to gaslight me. I was there. I saw what happened. You talked about how you yourself were injured. And I just want to have you say it again. Who helped you when you were injured? Who helped you when you were feeling despair, Ms. Hemphill?
Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
The Capitol Police. Wow. They grabbed my arm, and they were all yelling to tell people to get off of me. And then another one came over, and I was not breathing.
Yeah.
They pulled me up, and they put me up on the steps, and another female officer came over, and she was helping me. And I couldn't talk to her, and I couldn't get up because I couldn't breathe. But she was so kind and so loving. And I thought, here, I'm one of the rioters.
Yeah.
So that's why I can't thank them enough for
Yeah.
what they did for me that day.
So despite your actions, they were still there for you.
Yes.
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
It's amazing. They are amazing.
Yeah, they are.
They are.
And we're grateful for them every single day when we walk into this building.
Absolutely. And they deserve more than
They
what-
do. They
Yes.
deserve so much more than what they have been given by their government.
Yeah.
And I want to touch for a moment on the fact that you, by being here and by speaking out and by denying the pardon, you are showing everyday courage. And I keep coming back, and I just wrote it down again for myself. Mark Twain said, courage is resistance to fear. It's not mastery of fear. It's not absence of fear. And so you talked about your own fear, right? And coming forward, and that you've been doxxed and you've been harassed and you've been threatened. And yet you still stand so solidly in your conviction that what you did was wrong and that you want to speak out. You want to use this moment to right the wrong and to rewrite history. Can you just talk for a moment about how you found that courage? Because I want other people to find that courage.
I find that courage through a God that of my own understanding, because sometimes I don't have it. So I ask him to give me that courage, and he does.
Yeah.
He stands with me, in front of me, and beside me. But this was about the Capitol Police officers. There's something in me that I can't allow them to not be recognized and to be lied about for what they did for us on that day. How dare you? The Capitol Police and those that lost their life as a result bothers me to this day deeply. And until I can see that plaque get up there, I'm not done.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I see my time has expired. Again, thank you so much for being here. We can never forget. I yield back.
Thank you very much. Gentlelady's time has expired. Once again, I'd like to thank our witnesses for appearing here today and thank the members for their excellent questions. I now excuse you as witnesses and invite our second panel of witnesses to take their seat.
As you see the transition of witnesses there at this January 6th anniversary hearing held by House Democrats, you can see their former representative, Elaine Luria, a Democrat from right here in Hampton Roads, is among those who appears to be taking her seat now for the panel. I also see former Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger, who is there out of Illinois, to the right of Luria, who appears that he will be taking a seat on the next round of panel discussions. Again, both of them were a part of that original J6 committee a few years ago prior to losing their seats in the House. We're expecting to hear from them momentarily as Democrats are holding this hearing today, an unofficial panel hearing to remind the public of what took place 5 years ago today, January 6, 2021, there in the nation's capital as thousands of people rushed the Capitol, resulting in several people dying, being injured, and more than 1,500 individuals being charged that day, though they have since been pardoned by the President of the United States. Speaking of the President, he is still speaking before Republicans in the House at the Kennedy Center this morning. We heard from him for a while earlier this morning. We were taking him for several minutes and speaking about the loss announced here today of Republican Congressman out of California, Doug LaMalfa, who died at 65 years old. The president speaking to that, also on topics of healthcare and just a variety of things that he has touched on here since he has spoken. We're also monitoring in real time in Uvalde, Texas. I'll just speak to this. We're seeing lawyers on both sides pleading their case right now in that trial against a former police officer in Uvalde, Texas, being accused of not doing enough in his response to that deadly, horrific shooting at Robb Elementary a few years ago that resulted in the deaths of dozens of children and 2 teachers. You can see right now an attorney breaking down some of the evidence in that case. We'll go ahead and play a little bit of this. This is live right now. We are getting set for an interview that will be coming on momentarily as well. But I'll go ahead and listen into the trial taking place again of Adrian Gonzalez there facing 29 different counts.
What ultimately happens is tragedy. Once something like this happens, right, this was the only and the first time ever that a school shooting starts with arresting a culprit. Now, it's part of the training. Don't get confused. Don't get confused by the fact that there may be other things going on. Just like if there was a robbery at this funeral home and somebody's running out of the funeral home, it's not the first assumption back then for a police officer to say, oh, he's robbing the funeral home, then he's going to run over here and he's going to go into the classrooms and shoot the children. It's not the first assumption. Now, of course, that doesn't excuse it. It's wrong. It contributes to the confusion. So as we get here, you'll see that, I think Bill said, his boss arrives. What happens is that some of the officers, as he's going in this way, some of the officers bring the car around to try to figure out, like, is he trying to get around here? You'll see that Coronado and you'll see that Chief Arredondo come this way and this way to where Adrian is. By the time that they talk to Adrian, you have Sergeant Page that pulled in and arrived. So what's happening is that Adrian's trying to call it out. He sees other people. He then hears and understands eventually when Sergeant Page gets there, as he's trying to brief him about what's happening, he hears that he's in the building. And Adrian is one of the first 3 people to go in. This is not a man that does nothing. This is not a man that is sitting and doing nothing. It's a man who is confused. It's a man who's talking, who has made assumptions that are understandable that turned out to be wrong. But he was trying. He was going towards that danger. And this is a man who, when it was time, and they are standing here, and it's time, because you'll hear that Coronado did say, like, he's in the building, we got to go. But Sergeant Page never said any of that. Sergeant Page said, we're standing there, we hear the gunshots from inside the building, we made the decision. Everybody's kind of making that decision at the same time. The first three people to go in, when Adrian goes in there, when he goes into the building, Sergeant Page is in front of him, and he goes in behind him in the building, the gunman comes out of the classroom and takes shots at other officers coming in from the other side. Adrian Gonzalez did not fail to act. The gunman turns that way instead of that way. He's right in the line of fire. And he was willing to be there in a hallway with a rifle with no real protection from a rifle. They had nothing that would protect them from a rifle. That wasn't going to stop the rifle. If he turned around and shot him right in the chest, right past the Kevlar, that bullet kills him. And he did. He went in. He's one of the first in the building. But they get backed off because the shooter does not come out of the classroom. But you'll see him in the videos. Does not come out. But the gun comes out, shoots at other officers that are trying to come from the other way. They back off. You're also going to hear that Adrian has a radio. None of the officers' radios in Uvalde ISD, none of them, you'll hear what they say, break. That just means none of them work. They cannot communicate inside the building. His chief tells him to go out of the building and call SWAT. Adrian does.
Again, that is the case taking place right now, that trial of a former police officer in Uvalde, Texas, accused of not doing enough in response to the deadly shooting at Robb Elementary a few years ago. We're going to go from courtroom to courtroom. This one, though, in the Cincinnati area. We told you earlier this week in the stream that a man was accused of smashing windows at Vice President J.D. Vance's home in the Cincinnati area. 26-year-old William DeFore, who police say has a history of encounters with law enforcement, now faces both state and federal charges. The vice president and his family were not home when this alleged attack took place. DeFore now faces vandalism, criminal damaging, and trespassing following that situation just yesterday on Monday. He was in court today for a bond hearing. We did record the moments in which he was in court. It's very brief here. We're going to go ahead and play it for you so you can see the moments that he went before a judge.
Mr. DeFore has no adult convictions, no juvenile convictions. Mr. DeFore is in mental health court for 2 vandalism charges. There are 3 prior failures to appear. The charges are a felony of the 5th degree, and the rest of them are misdemeanors. And so the bond will reflect that, the level of the charges. The vandalism, on that, it will be $5,000 secured plus EMD lockdown. The obstruction, $2,500 anyway plus EMD lockdown. The criminal damaging, $2,500 anyway plus EMD lockdown. Those are misdemeanors of the 2nd degree, and the criminal trespass, which is a misdemeanor of the 4th degree, $1,000 anyway plus EMD lockdown.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thanks.
Okay, that is the moment that DeFore was in court and listened to a judge who set his bond at $11,000. Prosecutors say he used a hammer to smash the windows at Vice President J.D. Vance's home early Monday morning. He's also accused of trying to break the window of a federal agent's car. Now, they say he caused around $28,000 in damage. If convicted, these federal charges could land him in prison for decades. Again, the vice president and his family were not at the home at the time, but obviously in the nature and conversation we're talking about, essentially even with the J6 anniversary hearing that's taking place and all the talks that we've had over the last years about attacks on elected officials, another situation where that has become a concern, this at the vice president's home. We told you there was a lot of things going on today, just so much news that is taking place. And over the weekend, the biggest news that has happened in a while, we've been talking about it. A U.S. military strike led to the capturing of Venezuelan leader Maduro, Nicolas Maduro, bringing him to the United States, where he currently is in a New York facility awaiting his next court appearance after him and his wife were in court yesterday before a judge. And right now, we are bringing in Dr. Eric Claville, who is a political expert and director of the Center for African American Public Policy, to talk about just all that encompasses this, particularly on the political landscape, as we are hearing a lot from our elected officials and the leaders from across the world. So, Dr. Claville, thank you so much for joining us. I want to first make sure that you can hear me. Can you hear me well?
Absolutely. Happy New Year to you as well.
Happy New Year. What a way to start the new year here, right? 3 days in, news that absolutely sent shockwaves internationally. I want to ask you first, what was your reaction to the news that Maduro had been captured and brought into the United States on Saturday, January 3rd?
Well, to be very honest with you, I wasn't surprised that this capture took place. As always, I'm a student of not just law and education and politics, but also history. History tells us the story. This has happened before. If you remember, 1990, Panama, the capture of Manuel Noriega, the United States, Operation Just Cause, captured him on drug trafficking charges as well. Keep in mind that this administration beefed up our military presence in this part of the world, where we were taking out speedboats that were accused of trafficking drugs from Venezuela into the United States or other parts, eventually going into the U.S. And we were doing that through the military. There were many, many signs that showed that this was going to happen. So it's not surprising, but at the same time, it is alarming.
You use the word alarming there. Why so? Why do you use that word?
Well, if you take a look in less than a year of this administration, and I've said this before in conversations with colleagues, and I'm using it on air and commentary, but the United States in less than a year has gone from the world police to, some say, the world bully. And basically, we're the biggest show, we're the biggest and baddest on the block. If you take a look, not just at what has taken place in Venezuela, but remember, we flew halfway across the world and dropped bombs in Iran. This has never been done before, and flew back. We also bombed Nigeria as well on Christmas. And also, again, supplying and working with Ukraine as well, and other conflicts. But Venezuela is just the next. Now, our president has said in a press conference yesterday, he's warned other countries also in Trump-esque form, also quoting one of our hip hop artists, Biggie Smalls. If you don't know, now you know. So, now we're finding ourselves in a position where the world is taking a look, sitting back, and asking ourselves, who is the United States now? What is our identity? If you notice the muting of, or the muted responses from world leaders outside of the region, or some very calculated responses by some, really shows that many are really sitting back and waiting to find out, exactly who is the United States under this administration in the world, on the world scene.
One of the big questions that's been asked by a lot of the critics of this, and I say critics because we'll get into the critics who are also speaking of Maduro, right? We'll get into that in a little bit. But one of the big questions is this legal? Constitutionally, is there legality for this to take place?
Well, to be very honest with you, I've been unpacking a lot of this layer by layer over the days. I haven't really delved into the legality of it. However, there have been some that have called for the United States to adhere to international law. But once again, we have found that this has happened before. I mentioned 1890, Panama, Manuel Noriega. Let's not forget also in the early 2000s, that was under George H.W. Bush. In the early 2000s, under George Bush, the son, we saw the same thing in Iraq with Saddam Hussein, where we went in and captured a world leader and occupied the country. So, again, I haven't unpacked layer upon layer, but the charges and this person being indicted in our federal court on narco terrorism for other charges with drug trafficking and the like shows that this individual, this sitting president, is going to stand trial in the United States. So there is some legality there, but as it relates to our actions in going into the country, capturing this individual, and the president announcing that we're going to stay and run the country for a while, let's not also keep in mind that Venezuela has the largest known to man oil reserves in the world as well. So, that also plays a part. So again, this is a lot to unpack. A lot is happening in this administration, is happening very fast, very swiftly. And the world is sitting up and taking note and taking stock. And right now, lawmakers on Capitol Hill are calling for more transparency. Once again, Congress was not notified of this at all. One of our U.S. senators here in the Commonwealth of Virginia is once again preparing legislation in order to help check the war powers of any sitting president, not just this one. So again, a lot of questions being asked right now, a lot of going back and forth through policies in our country that are not just decades old, but hundreds of years old, to determine where we stand as a country on the world scene. But at the end of the day, we're a sovereign nation, and we have the right to defend ourselves against those that we feel encroach against us.
Right now we're taking a look on our end of the view of the Colombia-Venezuela border amidst all of the apprehension with the indictment of Nicolas Maduro. You were just mentioning that, Dr. Claville. I want to get to the question. I was kind of getting ahead of myself a few moments ago. This is a very interesting situation politically, particularly here in the U.S., because you have a lot of people, including on both sides of the aisle, who have said that Maduro is a bad actor, not good for the people of Venezuela. A lot of people in South America, in that country, that have been celebrating that he's no longer at the helm for this moment. But you also have critics who have said that they have an issue, as you have alluded to, with how this all has taken place and what happens from here. Politically, what thought have you given to how this could impact politics here in the U.S.? We know that the midterm elections are going to be huge here in the United States. Is this something that will factor into all of that?
To be very honest with you, I don't think it will factor that much. Again, I believe that right now, given the passage of the last budget reconciliation bill, which is known as the popular name, the Big Beautiful Bill, and critics of it call it the Big Ugly Bill, we're going to start to see the impacts of that starting January 1st. We've seen some of it. Some will take place July 1st and others a little further down. So I believe that the major impact that's going to really impact midterm elections is going to be economic. Now, in the event that we get involved in another world conflict and the administration is not able to create a narrative around it where the country will support it, keep in mind, we are war fatigued. You have a lot of veterans that voted not to get back into conflicts. We just ended the longest conflict we've ever had in Afghanistan. I mentioned 2003 when we captured Saddam Hussein there in Iraq, and we fought there as well. And now we have these conflicts that we are actively engaging in under this administration. So that will be a small bit of it from our veteran standpoint, our military support standpoint. But I believe the midterm elections ultimately will be around two things: economic issues in our democracy, with this president expressing and utilizing extreme presidential powers.
This is going to be something we're going to be talking about for quite some time. And obviously, as we look to see how that actual trial goes with Maduro and others. And we listened in yesterday to the UN Security Council and all of the international leaders sharing their words as well. So be sure that we're going to bring you back, Dr. Claville, for this and other conversations too. But we appreciate you taking the time today, just on the initial 72 hours after all of this, to kind of break down some things that give us a little bit of context to the history behind all of this. We appreciate you.
All right. Thank you, Eugene.
Thank you. Okay, we're ending a little bit early there with Dr. Claville, because right now, just at the podium, we are seeing former Representative Elaine Luria right here from Hampton Roads speaking in that January 6th panel hearing that is taking place, again, as House Democrats want to remind the public of what happened 5 years ago today in the nation's capital. Also, we don't have the shot up right now because it's not set, but we will be having some form of visual of the former leader of the far-right group, the Proud Boys, and others who were convicted in those crimes on January 6th. And that assault on the U.S. Capitol, well, they are set to return. Today, they are marching in Washington, D.C. here 5 years since that attack. When that comes up, we'll go ahead and show it to you in the last 10 minutes here of the stream. But for now, I turn it over to former Representative Elaine Luria.
Lead that fight. And this is one that I will never abandon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chair now recognizes Representative Kingsinger. You're recognized.
Well, thank you, Chairman Leader Jeffries. Thanks for having me. It's way different on this side, guys, let me tell you. I want to just briefly talk about the whole idea of this plaque. It's shocking to me, by the way, that has not been put up. Now, I am convinced that it will be put up at least by next January, and I'll humbly suggest maybe you can double the size of it by then. 5 years ago today, the president decided that America's legacy of transfer of power was beneath him. It was beneath him. And we all know what he did. He sent the mob to the Capitol and tried to rob the American people of their votes. He aimed to destroy America's self-determination and replace it with his own corrupt will. We've all seen the videos. We even saw them today. You know how vicious it was. No rational person can look at that violence that occurred on January 6th and think that it is not wrong. But even more concerning is that threats to our democracy have continued beyond what we've witnessed 5 years ago. And it's continued to today. The persisting threat to our nation lies in how Donald Trump and his allies have manufactured an alternate reality of conspiracies to support their violent siege of our democracy. It's simple. They want to rewrite history. By the way, we won't let them. These conspiracies started even before January 6th. The moment that Donald Trump realized that he could lose to Joe Biden, he began touting the big lie to undercut the public's trust in the election. And we all know that the thing that holds us together as Americans and the thing that allows us to self-govern is our belief that we can vote. If you're allowed to vote, the votes are counted and the winner wins. And when you violate that, you create real damage to the American people. When he began touting that big lie, he wanted us to believe that the election was stolen, that there was widespread voter fraud. This has been unequivocally disproven. It's been debunked by a series of independent agencies, Trump's own advisors, and more than 60 courts that did not rule in Trump's favor. And yet Donald Trump continues to spin. Trump even lied a few weeks ago when he told a little girl calling the White House on Christmas Eve that he had won Pennsylvania in 2020. He said he won Pennsylvania 3 times. It's a great thing to tell a kid that wants to know where Santa is. And his supporters follow suit, either knowingly pushing debunked conspiracy theories or still duped by the MAGA cult to spread ridiculous, widely disproven narratives whitewashing Trump's role and minimizing the attack. For example, his followers claim that Capitol Police opened the door to rioters, even though we have the footage of these officers being attacked and run down, with rioters literally stepping over injured officers to get inside. They claim that the January 6th attack was a sudden, unpredictable event. In reality, Trump sent rioters to the Capitol on January 6th, and we have the receipts showing that extremist right-wing groups planned the attacks for weeks beforehand. They also like to claim that the left-wing group Antifa, not Trump supporters, secretly orchestrated all the violence on January 6th. But we know it was groups like the Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, that started the violence on the 6th. DOJ's and FBI's own investigation debunked that wild theory. Many of my fellow Republicans even want to pretend that Donald Trump wasn't responsible for it and that he did not condone the violence on January 6th, even though we all can plainly see that it was Donald Trump who called on his supporters to march down Pennsylvania Avenue and fight like hell. It was Donald Trump who sat in the White House, as we discussed, for 187 minutes, watching the attack unfold, throwing gasoline on the flames with his 2:24 p.m. tweet targeting Vice President Pence in the middle of it. And since then, he's called January 6th defendants political prisoners and hostages. I want to point out here for a second that when these folks were arrested, they were contrite, as Ms. Hemphill was. And then the whole media organization of some of these came around and started calling them political prisoners. And when they did, they made them victims. And then that's when you saw the narrative change from they broke the law to they're victims. This is then in one of the first acts of the president's term, he immediately pardoned all of those people who took up arms for his wicked cause that day. I hear often, well, Adam, Trump only pardoned the innocent ones. He never pardoned cop beaters or real criminals. Well, that's obviously another false narrative. He didn't just pardon the nonviolent or non-dangerous people. He pardoned every single criminal who beat, kicked, punched, and pepper sprayed over 140 of our law enforcement officers. He pardoned every single criminal who helped drag a screaming officer into a crowd and said to shoot him with his own gun. I get asked frequently, why are you still going on about January 6th? Can't you just let it go? If our country had achieved real accountability and deterrence, we could move on. But we have not. A fact made clear by Donald Trump still spinning his conspiracies and his base still continuing to promote them. Donald Trump knows that these lies and stories only strengthen his power over the American people. How can I allow this without sharing what I know to be true, that on January 6th he tried to overthrow his government and call myself a patriot? How can I let that happen and call myself a patriot? How can we ever ensure that our votes matter if we bow to the narrative of a president who incites an insurrection, denies doing it, and then pardons the insurrectionists? The rewriting of January 6th is un-American. That's why we're here on this important day, to safeguard our democracy and call out corruption without fear of Donald Trump's persecution, so that a day like this may never stay in our country again. I also get asked a lot, what did the January 6th committee accomplish? And I'll tell you, we may have another few years. We have to continue to battle this misinformation. But I guarantee you that my kid and my grandkid and his grandkid will know the truth of what happened on that day, because while the DOJ was not allowed to finish their investigation because the president knew exactly what they had and he made them drop it, because of that, the only living record was the January 6th committee, and I am proud of our work, and I yield back.
Thank you so much for your testimony today. Very powerful. You both have served this country in various ways before, during and after your service. Representative Luria, you've had a distinguished career in the U.S. Navy. Representative Kinzinger, you've served in the U.S. Air Force and National Guard. Given that record of service, what would you tell those who are in nonpartisan professional roles in the U.S. government right now?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. During my time in the military, I was never a very partisan person. And I think that, serving on a deployment, sailors operating nuclear reactors, for example, I didn't turn to them and say, are you a Democrat, are you a Republican? We're serving the country, we're serving the Constitution, we're carrying out a mission that's very important for the defense of our nation and preserving democracy. And I think for today, some people in uniform, it can be challenging to see the rhetoric